Happy Valentine's Day, everybody! So, for some reason, this is a holiday that I see so many people either like really embracing it, loving themselves and loving the people around them. And then I also see the other side of that where I see a lot of people that are just absolutely miserable. Um, Part of that misery comes from a lack of self love, really, because you just really can't fully love another person if you don't fully love yourself first. And a lot of the problems that you see in relationships, if you really look at them on a deeper level, you'll find that there's usually a connection to a lack of self love, and that's part of the reason why these relationships are so rocky and turbulent. Um, so, healing emotionally is a big step into the beginning part of self-love, loving yourself, so that you can move on to fully love another person. And this emotional healing is a very necessary step in allowing yourselves to live the absolute best quality of life that you can, that is completely full of self-love, where you feel love and you radiate love. And one of the only ways to do that is to heal emotionally. So our emotional well-being, just it's something that can greatly affect our relationships with other people and with ourselves. When we're emotionally damaged, we portray all of that negativity onto others, and we do that unintentionally, usually. This can lead to a lot of feelings of guilt. It can lead to disappointments in the relationship. It can lead to anger within ourselves, which can, of course, then it can cause those negative emotions to kind of become even more prevalent in our own lives. Just because we're getting that back, we're putting that out there, and then we're getting that back. So because of that, that can cause a wedge to kind of be put in the middle of our relationships a lot of times. It can cause an intense lack of self-love for ourselves. And when we're on a journey of emotional healing, we need to understand the mindset and where that comes from, where that brokenness that needs the healing, where it's coming from. We need to learn how to break the cycle of the negativity and discover ways to balance and manage all of those emotions. It's usually a good idea to learn some simple coping techniques that you can practice daily, like mindfulness, acupressure points, tapping or EFT, meditating, setting affirmations and intentions, doing some sort of spiritual practice. And it doesn't, and it can be anything. It can, if you're a religious person, it could be as simple as just setting up a daily routine of praying. If you don't consider yourself to be a religious person, it can be something as simple as literally setting affirmations or practicing meditation on a daily basis. So in order to begin to heal from all of this emotional damage, we just develop, we're broken, okay? We're a broken species. We're affected very much by our environments, and there's a lot more going on in our environments than there is in the rest of the animal kingdom. The rest of the animal kingdom, it is pretty much about survival. But for us, it's not about survival. It's about survival, and it's about acceptance, and it's about just, survival, acceptance. It's about love. It's about friendships. It's about social life. There's so much more going on. And our environments can cause a lot of damage in all of these different categories because there's just so many of them. So we first need to understand the mindset and the causes of all of this damage that's happened. So outside stimuli can impact our mind's development from early on. Words, behaviors, and experiences can condition our minds to think in certain ways. And throughout our lives, the opinions and the words of others can alter our mindset and our beliefs about ourselves and about other people. So when those opinions or those words are negative, it can convince us of our unworthiness. Life experiences like tragedies can impact our mindset into seeing life as a complete struggle, and one that we just don't feel like we can change. So, like, for example, you can see a child that comes from an abusive upbringing, and they'll often see themselves as being bad or being not good enough, and that can cause anger or depressive problems that emerges later in their life, and sometimes even as when they're still a child. It convinces them that they're not only bad or a bad person, but that life also just sucks. So there's just no joy in their life, and then they feel like they're a bad person. And so because of that, they actually start to behave accordingly to fit that description. So because they feel like they're a bad person, or they're unworthy, or they're unloved, and that life just sucks, they start projecting that outward, and then they get more of that back, and that just further convinces them that, that life is just shitty and that they're just a crappy person. When in reality, that's really not true. It's just their environment has kind of conditioned them to think that way. So sometimes those thoughts can be negative towards ourselves. And in an attempt to combat those negative thoughts about ourselves, we begin to recognize which behaviors are accepted and expected of us. So we try to live up to those expectations by wearing a different mask and portraying ourselves differently to the people that we're around. So again, for example, when we're a child, we tend to learn what behaviors our parents expect from us, and then we strive to try and meet those expectations. When we're told or we feel like we're not meeting them, in an attempt to keep our parents happy, we end up learning how to cover it up or play it off like we did better than we were. We're constantly striving for that acceptance from our parents. We might lie or try to hide things and try to cover up the less than desirable behavior, all in an attempt just to keep our parents happy, or guardians, or whoever it is that's kind of raising us. We carry the same mindset into our relationships. So relationships with our friends or romantic partners, we're constantly trying to meet the expectations that we think they have for us, even if it's different than the expectations we actually have for ourselves. Our ego can become a little bit stronger. Well, we might start to compare and criticize ourselves, which can be extremely emotionally damaging, and increasing those feelings of guilt and disappointment. And also the feelings of anger towards ourselves. All of that can become increasingly loud. The cycle repeats until we understand and recognize it, and then we have to learn how to break free and find that balance. So once we kind of understand the mindset of it all, we can start the journey into healing, and we can start to break that cycle. So since the conditioning of this all can result in negative emotions towards others and ourselves, a good place to start healing in this process is learning to actually forgive. I talk about forgiveness a lot because I really feel that forgiveness is one of the biggest hurdles that we have, is learning to forgive not only other people but also ourselves. But learning how to actually truly forgive is one of the biggest hurdles, but it's also one of the most necessary steps into emotional healing. Like, you just can't heal if you can't forgive. It goes hand in hand. You have to be able to do one in order to do the other. So, I talk about forgiveness and the importance of it a lot, and people kind of, get confused, I think, a lot of what forgiveness really is, and that's a different topic. But it's just so important. And if you have questions about forgiveness and what I mean by forgiving, and maybe you feel like you can't forgive certain people, like, reach out, because I'm totally willing to try and help you move on from that and learn how to forgive. And understand forgiveness a little bit more, that it is not for the other person, it is for you. So anyway, learning to accept the things that we cannot control and letting them go is also extremely important. Instead of overthinking, worrying, or stressing about finding a solution for a situation that we have absolutely no control over to begin with. It's completely pointless to worry about things that we can't control. From my own experience, when my sister passed away, I held on to a lot of regret that I did not do things that I felt like I should have done. So I held on to a lot of regret that I did not answer her message or call her back right away the night before she died. And a lot of that was just because I was so exhausted, and she messaged and called me very, very late. In my mind, I had planned to call her back the next evening, when I had a little bit of free time. But I never got that opportunity to do that. And for several years, I thought that maybe if I had called her back or answered her message, that somehow, she might still be here. In these kind of situations like that, a lot of times we do put the blame on ourselves. And it's part of the grieving process, it's the blaming part. And a lot of times we blame ourselves. Sometimes we point the finger at other people, but we're always trying to blame somebody for that trauma that takes place. So I beat myself up over that for a long time. And then I'd start thinking back, and that would make me start thinking back to, an argument that we had 20 years ago, or as a kid when I did this and I didn't listen to her, and then she got in trouble because, this happened or that happened or whatever. And just little things like that would start triggering me, and it's because I hadn't forgiven myself. So it took a really long time for me to come to terms with the fact that I was not going to be able to save her life. That I needed to forgive myself for feeling like I had somehow played a part in her passing, because I hadn't played a part in that. And there were people that I felt that didn't really do their best to help her like they should have. And I had to learn to forgive them too, and realize that they were doing what they felt was best at the time. Even though it might seem totally corrupted and seem like it's completely like, just how on earth could somebody feel like they were doing the best at that time? But I needed to accept the fact that that's what people do in that given present moment. When they do some kind of behavior or action, they are doing what they feel is best at the time. And sometimes the best isn't the best, but in that given time, as humans, we're always trying to just do what is the best at that present moment that we're faced with. And I needed to accept and realize that that's what these people are doing, that I felt they weren't doing their best to help her. I needed to accept and realize that they were trying to do what they felt was in her best interest and in their best interest. So I had to learn how to forgive them too, and it was hard, but it was necessary. So my sister's life journey, it was hers, and it was hers alone. There was absolutely nothing that I or anyone else could have done that would have changed the outcome of her journey. We all have a path, and we have our own journey, and we don't get to decide when our journey on this physical earth is done. We don't get to make that decision. And so, realizing that it doesn't matter how much you try to intervene or what you try to do to prolong the transition of somebody. When it's their time, and that is ultimately just the way that it is. So the outcome for my sister, it would have still been the same either way in time, right? She wasn't going to be here in this physical plane of existence forever. It's just, that's not the way it works. In time, her journey was going to end here, and her journey ended at that time. It ended January 30th of 2016. That was her timeline. That was her journey. So it's equally important also to recognize what our intuition is telling us and listen to it so that we can better avoid putting ourselves in situations that might jeopardize our well-being. So establishing boundaries and learning how to use our voice assertively to express those boundaries can also help us avoid the possibility of feeling as if we're being taken advantage of by others, which can increase those negative feelings. Now, very recently, I left a job of mine because of that. Because I felt like I was being taken advantage of, and I did not feel like I was appreciated at this job, so I left. And I can tell you that was so recent, and today I would normally be at work at that job, but I feel phenomenal and just incredible that I'm not there, because there was so much negativity connected to that place of employment that I was feeling. And it's not to say that the employer was bad. It's not to say that the coworkers were bad or anything like that, or that the job itself was bad. I'm not saying that, but it wasn't in alignment with me anymore. It just didn't work. It didn't feel like it was my place, and it wasn't working, and I felt like I deserved more than what I was getting out of it. And so I decided to leave, and that there is a form of self-love. I decided that I deserved more, and I'm going to go after more, because it wasn't there, So I did. And I did have to assert myself. I had to be assertive when expressing my reasons for leaving. So now the last, I'd say the good last year and a half of working there has felt kind of that way. It's felt like negative, and it's, increased negative feelings to where really, I just didn't want to go to work, like ever. And I dealt with that for over a year, feeling that way, until I finally was like, okay, enough is enough. You know what? Like, you deserve more. I love you, and we're going to do more. We're going to accomplish more. And that's what I'm set out to do now. And so I left that toxic environment, and I got away from that, and, on to bigger and better things. So the one thing I want to point out, though, is that there's a big difference between being assertive and being aggressive. Okay? So assertive expression involves a great deal of respect when you're setting your boundaries. And you use that by, you express that by your use of body language, word choices, your tone, and matter-of-fact statements. Aggressive expression, on the other hand, does not hold that same respect. It often involves intimidating body language, like clenched fists or tensed facial muscles, heavier agitated breathing, feeling like your heart rate increasing, or feeling like your blood boiling. You feel that anger brewing. That's aggressive expression, not assertive. So if you're feeling that, then it's not the time to set those boundaries. It's time to actually take a step back, pause a little bit, take some deep breaths, recompose yourself, recenter, reground, and then try again. So aggressive expression also involves oftentimes name calling, raised or intimidating tones of voice. Even physical aggression sometimes can come from all of this. So if you do start feeling like you're sensing those anger and stuff while you're trying to establish these boundaries and you're trying to be heard, realize that you're crossing over the line of what is aggressive and what is assertive. And so you're crossing over that and you're stepping into that aggressive expression, and it's time to just take a step back and, pause a little bit, breathe, do whatever you need to do to lower that and bring those emotions down to a balanced level. And then you can try setting those boundaries again once you've kind of composed yourself and given yourself that time that's needed. So setting boundaries can help us feel more in control of our lives. And it can increase our feelings of self-love and self-respect and self-assurance. So then we come to being emotionally balanced. And when we're emotionally balanced, it does not mean that we do not feel any negative emotions. Okay, it simply means that we can manage them without feeling overwhelmed and consumed by them. So we feel the good and we feel the bad. We feel the highs and we feel the lows. We feel the positives and the negative equally. And we can determine when they're becoming too heavy, and we can let them go. So we're able to take the negative and we're able to find the positive that is hidden within the negative. And when we are able to do that, our perception and our belief doesn't become quite so cloudy and blurred with all that negativity. So we can see the good among the bad, and then we can easily find things in our life to be grateful for, and to help us with the process of having a positive mindset and allowing for a positive life. So take, for instance, a time when you really, really, really wanted something. Okay, so maybe it was like a new job or promotion or something, and you felt super, super good about it. And you were absolutely convinced that you had this. You were going to get this job or this promotion, like hands down, no question at all, you had it, right? And then you get the word that, in fact, you did not get it. You didn't get that job. You didn't get that promotion. The majority of people, initially, they're going to feel a bit bummed out about that, and it might actually cause a lot of negative self-talk. They might start telling themselves, well, you're stupid. Why did you even think that you could even get that job? You're never going to be able to have something that good. But you might find yourself saying those kinds of things to yourself. And that's pretty common. A lot of people are going to do that. But if you can train your mind to actually see the positive within that circumstance, you'd understand that there's a good reason that job or that promotion didn't come your way. Okay, maybe there's a better opportunity in store for you. Maybe the hours would have taken away from something else that was even more important, like your family. Or your self-care. Maybe it would have taken away from that, and those were things that are super important that you need. Maybe your new boss at this new job, or if you were climbing the corporate ladder, then your new boss from your promotion, maybe they just weren't a very nice person. From having that understanding, you can learn to be grateful for what you already have, like your old job, or having a kind boss, or having more time with your family that needs you. But you can find the good that's kind of hidden within what you would perceive as being something bad or negative. So there's a lot of coping techniques that can help with this emotional healing and kind of training your mind to see things in a different perspective. And so some of those would be like practicing daily meditation, or setting affirmations, setting anchors, all those things that I kind of mentioned before, acupressure, tapping, all those, just to name a few. Those are all great ways to cope when you're faced with situations that, may bring on negative feelings. So these techniques not only benefit your mental and your emotional health, but also your physical health. So these feelings can increase your heart rate. They can increase your blood pressure. They can cause muscle tension and soreness. all kinds of stuff. They can cause you to feel ill with stomach aches and headaches. They can cause sleep disturbances. They might deplete your energy level. And you might feel kind of like foggy-headed in that. Like you just don't quite feel as clear-headed or focused on things because you get all of this added stress. So these techniques can aid in controlling those negative feelings that can contribute to those physical ailments that we experience. So it's not just mental, but it's also physical. So affirmations are super simple way to start with. And if you're not familiar with affirmation, what I want you to do is take a piece of paper, take a pen, pencil, whatever. Okay, and I want you to start with I. And just put, I am. And then from there, finish with something positive. You are what? What are you? I am successful. Whatever you want to put in there, you put in there. I am. But you're going to state it as if you already are that. So that's the key to setting an affirmation, is to say it like it's already, like you already have it. Okay, you're not going to put in there, I need to be, or I want to be, because that's telling the universe, that's putting it out there that you don't have that yet. And so in order to get it back, you want to put it out there like you already have it. So you want to say things like, I am successful. I am beautiful. I am kind. I am friendly. I have friends. I have support. So you want to use it in a present tense, like you own it right now. You got it. Okay, so that's the key thing to writing an affirmation, a positive affirmation for yourself. And it's an easy way to start because they're simply positive statements that you can write down and you can read them throughout the day. Or to repeat in your head or repeat them out loud, however you want to do it. So meditation is scientifically proven to increase the overall quality of your life, both physically and mentally. Most people do not realize that, but it is scientifically proven. So it can take a little bit of practice, but there's tons of videos on YouTube, all over. I mean, if you listen to podcasts, if you have Spotify or whatever, any of those kind of apps and stuff, you can find guided meditations everywhere. They're all over online. So it's not hard to find one that can help kind of get you started and guide you through the process. So acupressure, anchors, EFT or tapping, those all use different points on your body to help set and program the mind with positive messages and feelings. I can give you handouts on that stuff. I can give you little demonstrations. Maybe I'll do that at a later date or something. But, I can show you how to set some of those, how to do some of those. They're techniques that don't require a lot of preparation. And with practice, you can feel comfortable doing them virtually anywhere and at any time. So recognizing and allowing ourselves to step back and relax when our stress, anxiety, or other negative feelings are high and are overwhelming, they can all benefit with these techniques. Learning that self-care and showing ourselves the love and self-acceptance is the most important part of our well-being, and that other things can sometimes wait until later is a necessary step as well. So all of those dishes and the laundry and all that stuff, they don't have to be done right now. If you need to take time for yourself, take time for yourself first and let those just sit for a minute. You can go back to them later. Okay? So, when we feel that our body is just too tired or our mind's just too cluttered to deal with that stuff, those everyday chores and things and responsibilities. Listen to it and allow yourself time that's needed to recoup and restore before you start tackling it. It'll make it a lot more enjoyable. So you can return and your focus to those things later on, but ignoring your body and your mind's cries for a break and forcing yourself to do more will actually only contribute to all of those physical and mental ailments that you're feeling because of all of those negative feelings that are associated with trying to force yourself to do something that doesn't feel in alignment or doesn't feel right to do right now. So give yourself that needed break when you need it, and then step back to it. Okay? That is a huge way of showing yourself self-love. You always hear the saying that you can't pour from an empty cup, and it's absolutely true. But the thing is that we are constantly always pouring. Okay, it doesn't matter. We're always pouring. And so it's crucial as a part of our well-being to ensure that our cup is always full too. It's critical that we heal from our emotional damage and we learn how to manage our emotions and stay balanced in order to be able to continue to pour and not feel like we're draining every last drop of ourselves. Okay, without emotionally healing, we're going to continue to harbor all the negativity of the past and build upon it with all the negativity that we're faced with in the present and the future. And this can cause us to portray those negative emotions onto others. And in turn, that leads to more self-hatred and disappointment within ourselves. That self-initiated negativity builds on to that harbored negativity, and that cycle just continues. So it's just this revolving door of negativity that we can't seem to ever break through. So very, very important to try to practice some of these techniques and some of these things to, bring yourself into balance and start this journey of emotional healing. I'm going to be, in the next few days, I'm going to be posting some different meditations and things like that to help you on this self-healing journey. So keep watch for those.